Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Brent Venables, the Oklahoma Sooners, a massive opportunity this weekend on the recruiting trail, both in the transfer portal and that 2025 class department. I want to talk about some of the top targets that will be on campus for the Sooners, not only in the transfer portal, but as we take a look into this 2025 class, a cycle at Oklahoma already has a very good start and want to talk about some of the top targets that I am very intrigued by for the Oklahoma Sooners. Before we get into it, just want to say, as always, thank you to you guys and a shout out to the Oklahoma fans, a program that we talk a ton about in the transfer portal, on the high school recruiting trail. You guys continue to show a ton of love, a ton of support. All the Boomer Sooners in the comment section, that stuff means a lot. Cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And as the commitments come in, and it sounds like Oklahoma might be landing some commitments over the next 48, 72 hours, we will keep you guys updated, break down the commitments. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. And without further ado, let's get into this one. And I want to start with the transfer portal. And this is a conversation that we've had a ton for the Oklahoma Sooners over the last couple of weeks, and that is, you look at this Oklahoma offense heading into 2024, Jackson Arnold at quarterback. You have a very, very good running back room, a loaded group at the wide receiver position. You want to make sure Jackson Arnold is protected up front, has a run game to lean on, and Oklahoma has prioritized that offensive line extensively in the portal, building the depth, building the talent, building that competition up front. An opportunity to really enhance that going into spring and going into the summer. The Hatchett brothers, you had the older brother, Gary and Hatchett, visiting last weekend. Did not come with his younger brother, but it sounds like Landon Hatchett, the younger brother, will be on campus in Norman this weekend. And it does sound like it's a package deal. And the fact that the older brother came on campus, seemed like it went well, went back home, and now the younger brother's coming down. That sounds like it's trending in the right direction. Landon Hatchett, a guy that as a true freshman played a decent amount of football. You talk about upside with a guy like Landon Hatchett. It's certainly there. And his older brother, another guy that it could be a plug-and-play guy for Oklahoma heading into 2024. I mean, you were looking at two potential starters on that offensive line for Oklahoma in the 2024 season, but at the very least, a conversation that we've had a ton, and that is getting that depth and competition on that offensive line. You have two guys that have played a solid amount of Power 5 football on the inside of that offensive line, potentially coming to this Oklahoma Sooners program. That would be massive. They released a Twitter post last night saying that it doesn't sound like they're going back to the Washington Huskies. So it sounds like Oklahoma probably in the driver's seat with this recruitment. We'll see how that plays out. But you take a look at what Oklahoma is doing in the 2025 cycle, and they've already had a phenomenal start. And as we kind of get familiar with some of these top targets for Oklahoma, want to highlight some of the names that are really standing out to me as I'm starting to dig into some of the film and kind of evaluating some of these 2025 prospects. And the first guy that I want to talk about, and truly probably one of the top priorities for Oklahoma in this 2025 class, and that's Jonah Williams. And you want to start with, he's got a lot of things that you can't teach. 6'3", 200 pounds, phenomenal athlete for that weight. And I think what excites me the most about Jonah Williams is you look at where he could play for Oklahoma at the college level. You could see him at linebacker, right? 6'3", 203 pounds, has the frame to get up to 225, 230. No doubt in my mind is that modern day, like what you want in those linebackers, right? Guys that can go sideline to sideline, carry tight ends. He plays safety at the high school level, and you could certainly see him playing safety as well. And this is a guy that I think one of the things I love the most is he's a ball hawk. He just gets the position, has phenomenal instincts, kind of reminds you a little bit of Peyton Bowen coming out of high school, where you turn on the film and it's just right place, right time, time after time after time. And all of a sudden you start thinking like, this ain't just a coincidence. He knows how to play the game. He knows those instincts, and he's a guy that can do a lot of different things in the back end. I could see him playing that cheetah role for Oklahoma, the linebacker role, or the free safety role. And you want that kind of versatility when you're trying to build that secondary. Jonah Williams, one of my favorite prospects in this 2025 class. And the next guy I want to talk about, and a guy that we've talked about in connection with a lot of different programs, and that is the 4-star linebacker, Christian Jones from Omaha, Nebraska. Now, it sounds like Nebraska is probably in the driver's seat for this commitment. Very similar to kind of the conversation we had with Graham Bricks. It sounds like Oklahoma and Notre Dame are the other two competitors. And a guy like Christian Jones, I've watched a couple hours of his film, and he's a guy that kind of like what you said with Jonah Williams. I think a lot of those same things can be said about Christian Jones. He's just a pure linebacker. He's going to be a guy that is going sideline to sideline, is extremely physical. You're going to see him play that nickel role at high school, seeing him coming off the edge, can do a lot of different things. You talk about having that checklist of what you want in linebackers. Christian Jones kind of just goes down the list and starts checking all those boxes. He's a tackle machine, always seems to be around the football. And quite frankly, just looks a little different out there. Like, you don't really need to have him highlighted to know where he is and what he's doing on the field. He's flying around. He has a phenomenal size, probably gets up to 230 as he enters college football. Nebraska, Oklahoma, Notre Dame. I mean, it sounds like Oklahoma is right there in this recruitment, and you're going to be battling Nebraska to get him coming out of state. Another guy that I think Oklahoma fans should be really excited about. And the last guy I want to talk about, and this has been a conversation with a lot of Oklahoma fans, is recruiting the offensive line on the high school ranks. And this is a conversation we've had a lot, where you look at where Oklahoma was right now, and they had to go to the transfer portal pretty heavily with that offensive line unit. And that was because, one, you had some unfortunate transfers out, guys like Caden Green. But, I mean, you look at Oklahoma and what they've done on the recruiting trail. They're checking a lot of boxes. You would like to see them start recruiting the offensive line at a little bit higher rate. And you know the development's there. Like Coach Bill B, I see a lot of people critical of his recruiting chops. And I to an extent, understand where you're coming from. But that Oklahoma offensive line and the development, it certainly has been there. But you just want to see the development match up with bringing in that caliber talent. And a guy like Laman Rogers, probably going to be one of my favorite offensive tackles in this 2025 cycle. And I'll tell you why. One, 6'6", 300 pounds. He's been that size since his sophomore year at high school. And you watch the sophomore film, and you just know that he's still trying to figure out that body and that coordination. That is a lot of weight and a lot of mass to be kind of using functionally for a 15, 16-year-old kid. And so you go to the junior year film and you see him getting better. You see him a little bit more comfortable with the size and the length that he has. The coordination is getting a little bit better. And then what happens going into the senior year? Does he get a little bit more accustomed to that size? I mean, you're probably not going to be getting much bigger, maybe a little bit more weight, but he's a guy that I think was so big so early. It took him a while to kind of grow into that body. And I think his senior year film is going to be really exciting to see if he's kind of fully matured into that body. And another thing that really excites you, and many longtime listeners know I love seeing this in offensive linemen, he's an elite basketball player. So you kind of trust the athleticism. I actually took a look at some of the basketball clips as well. And this is a guy that, I mean, has phenomenal athleticism. And you've seen him take those steps in terms of growing into that body and understanding that body a little bit more. That senior year film, I think you might see Laman Rogers kind of bull up the rankings because he's a box checker, man. Length, athleticism, it's all there. You just want to see him be a little bit more coordinated, a little bit more of a smooth operator. And if he does that going into his senior year, I could see him being one of the top offensive tackles in this 2025 class. And I think Oklahoma getting him on campus is a massive opportunity to kind of get in the driver's seat of a recruitment that I think is going to be a very sought after tackle for a lot of programs. You would like to see Oklahoma really start recruiting that offensive line position at a high level. Laman Rogers, another guy to keep your eye on. And the list is probably 20 plus players long. Wanted to highlight some of my favorite targets for Oklahoma. We'll continue to update you guys as this 2025 cycle plays out. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.